Restoration druids are all about healing with the power of nature, plants, petals, and flowers. And it really does make for an interesting class fantasy. We're going to hot up our allies, meaning heal over time spells, with loads of them, healing before the damage even comes in. So, in the War Within then, a lot has changed. Let's see how we're going to play it. This guide is going to be very beginner friendly, but will also encompass everything you need to know if you are a veteran. We're going to start off now with the stat priority. First up, your primary stat is intellect. You're going to be prioritizing intellect by just getting a higher and higher eye level or gear level of gear. Do harder content, get better gear. It's all going to have a higher and higher amount of intellect. Do not worry about your secondary stat priority unless you are comparing eye levels of the same amount. This here is the priority that you do need to follow, however, if you would like to. So the secondary stats we have are versatility. This is the same on every class. It increases damage and healing done, while also simultaneously reducing damage taken. Then we have mastery, and this is different for every specialization. Your healing is increased by X amount, more obviously, the more mastery you have, for each of your restoration heal over time effects on the target. So here for me it is 5.4%. So if I use regrowth on myself, it's going to be 5% more healing. If I then use wild growth and then rejuvenation and then life bloom, that's going to be 5, 10, 15, 20%. And it kind of works like that. The more hots or heal over times you have on your target, the more healing overall we do. And that is the way Restoration Druid primarily works. We want to hot up or ramp up the healing on our target to do maximum amounts. Because we are going to put multiple hots on our target, we generally want to know when the big amount of damage is coming in so that we can put all those heal over times on them before the damage actually hits. And we can just start healing as soon as the damage comes in. Haste, increasing our spell casting speed and energy regeneration, so our mana, and also the global cooldown. So if I use something like Wild Growth here, you can see it takes a short amount of time to cast. If I have more haste, that is actually going to take less time to cast, and it's going to heal more quickly. You can see, oh, lovely flowers everywhere. Critical Strike, where you have a chance at just doing more healing. While we're here, let's just have a quick look at what our set bonus does in Season 1 of the War Within. We have our 2 set here, where Regrowth, Wild Growth, and Swift Mend healing is increased. Cool, just a flat increase to some of our healing spells. 4 set, your healing is increased by 8% when consuming Soul of the Forest's bonus and for 6 seconds afterwards. This is something we're going to be doing anyway in the rotation I will be showing you, so another passive flat increase to healing here. If you don't know what these spells are, don't worry, I'll be covering it fully shortly in the rotation part of the video. So moving on to the utilities and kind of defensive spells that we have as a druid, I'm going to be showing you the most important ones now. That's not to say that there aren't other utilities available. There are quite a lot you have as a druid in your toolkit. However, as a beginner, I do not want to overload you, and these are really the ones you need to worry about. Once you're more comfortable with the specialization, I would just go through your spellbook and the druid talent tree, so that's the talent tree on the left, and just see the other bits and bobs that you do have available. So starting off with on the left, what we can do to our enemies to stop them, we've got Cyclone. Throwing our enemy up into the air, incapacitating them for a few seconds. That does mean that we can't attack them and they can't attack us. We've got Hibernate here, forcing our enemy to sleep for 40 seconds, but damage will awaken them. It does only work on beasts and dragonkin, so you need to kind of work out, who is my enemy here. We have Typhoon, one of my favorites. It's instant, so you can see I can use it on the move here on these target dummies. It's going to blast away your enemies, knocking them back, and also slowing them for a few seconds. Speaking of slows, you've got Ursul's Vortex here, and you can place this wherever you want. You can see here this vortex appears, and enemies inside it are going to be massively slowed. Now, when they try and exit it, they'll be pulled back into the center of the vortex when they first attempt to leave it. And lastly, we have Entangling Roots. You can see here, I'm going to entangle the target dummy in roots. Now, it sometimes will actually be interrupted by damage, but not always. Now on to the things we can do to improve our quality of life for us and our allies. We have Dash here. increasing your movement speed by 60% and immediately putting you into cat form. One thing I want to note is that when you do go into cat form, you will actually be increasing your movement speed by 30%. So going into dash will add another 30%. Just to reiterate that, dash is going to give you a 60% movement speed buff for 10 seconds, but going into cat form will speed you a little bit anyway. We've got renewal, simply renewing 30% of your maximum health. We've got innovate, giving to you or a fellow healer unlimited mana basically for casting spells for 8 seconds. So when you cast healing spells for the next 8 seconds, it won't cost any mana at all. Then we've got Bark Skin, reducing damage taken while also increasing healing taken. Your skin is as tough as bark. And you can use it while stunned, feared, frozen, asleep, etc. And lastly, we have Mark of the Wild, increasing the versatility by 3% for you and any party or raid members. You can also use it on people in the wild. I could probably even use it on this NPC here. Let's see. No, it doesn't work. But you can use it on people just out in the wild. You can target them and then use it on them, and it will increase their versatility. Remember, that is the stat that increases damage and healing done and also decreases damage taken. So again, it will actually affect you, your party and raid members, or people that you target out in the open world. And that is it. The last one, as I said, go through your spellbook. The last one I want to mention is Rebirth. Usually you can only resurrect allies out of combat, but Rebirth will let you actually resurrect them on a 10-minute cooldown when you are in combat. So if somebody dies on a boss fight, you can actually just resurrect them there and then. Do be careful where you do this. You don't want to resurrect them into something, but this is a really, really useful utility that we have. And the cooldown is shared among the party. So if you have like a Death Knight, another Druid, or anyone else that has paladins that have, combat reses available, the cooldown is shared between you. Now on to the fun bit, which is actually how we're going to play Resto Druid in the War Within for PvP. So starting off, we've got the first few things that we might want to use as our sort of opener, etc. We can go into cat form and go into prowl to get the element of surprise on our enemies, maybe going up to them and using something like a cyclone to incapacitate one of the members so we can take them out of the way while we burst down a different enemy. Of course, we are the healer in this situation, so what we can do is put on our rejuvenation to hot up our allies as well. So you go and hot up your team with rejuvenation, maybe using a cyclone, maybe using Mighty Bash, which even though the icon, you can actually use this in any shapeshift form you like to stun your enemy. Now, as a druid, we do of course use a lot of hots, so we are making a lot of use of that in the main rotation. If they do actually target you, a lot of people are, you're the healer, we can use Iron Bark or we can use Bark Skin. The interesting thing about Bark Skin down here is that your skin becomes tough as bark, reducing all damage, etc. It's usable while you're stunned, frozen, incapacitated, feared, or asleep, and in all shapeshift forms, meaning even if you get incapacitated at the start and they try and burst you, you can still use your Bark Skin. And if they just try and movement impair you, will go into bear form because that will actually take away any movement impairing effects and give you a load of armor and stamina. Another thing we can do when we go in is using Life Bloom, using Cenarian Ward. Regrowth isn't instant, but you can use it and then use a Swift Mend to get an even more powerful regrowth. So there's a lot of instant spells that we can put up when we go in. We can use Rejuve, we can use Life Bloom, we can use Cenarian Ward, and then maybe using, a regrowth and then a Swift Mend to then get out a bigger regrowth. So if you don't know these, Rejuve is a hot or heal over time. So is Life Bloom. You can put it on 2 targets at once. Cenarian Ward is basically a shield or an absorption shield we can put on. And then we can put on Regrowth. It's a single target casted to heal. And then we can use Swift Mend, which will absorb the regrowth. But it will also then give you a buff called Soul of the Forest. Swift Mend increases the healing of your next regrowth by 150%. Meaning you can use a regrowth, then a Swift Mend, and then a regrowth at much further empowered. Now, you can also see that every third Swift Mend is you go into your tree form, doing a massive extra amount of healing as well, which is this cooldown here, Incarnation Tree of Life. So again, every 3 times of Swift Mend, we will actually go into Incarnation Tree of Life, where you get more armor by 120%, increases healing done, polymorph protection, and rejuvenation, wild growth, and regrowth, and entangling roots and wrath are enhanced. So entangling roots will actually be instant cast. Your regrowth will also be instant cast. Your rejuvenation is actually doing a lot more healing while also costing less as well. So it really is an amazing cooldown that we get for a few seconds every third use of Swiftmend, or just whenever we want it on a 3-minute cooldown as well. We do also have bark skin, where we can put this on anyone, not just ourselves. The target skin becomes tough as bark, reducing damage taken and increasing healing. And they also are going to receive 75 of the healing percent from the healing from every active rejuvenation we have out. So that's the kind of the first things you can go into when you're first going into the arena or battleground, etc. A bit overwhelming, I know. There's a lot to think about with Restoration Druid. If we're looking at kind of our general healing, we've already gone over the Incarnation Tree of Life. If you run out of mana, we can use Innovate to get some mana-free healing. And we can also use our Grove Guardians. We are going with Keeper of the Grove as the hero talents, which I'll be explaining to you fully shortly, but it basically enhances further your Grove Guardians, summoning a treant which will immediately cast Swiftmend on the target, healing them, and also cast Nourish on nearby targets, etc. So it's a really passive way of healing, and people hate it in PvP because they're so annoying. You can't really get rid of them very easily. We've got Swiftmend, which I've already explained, and Regrowth. And Ironbark. Another spell we can use is our Nature's Swiftness. Your next Regrowth, Rebirth, or Entangling Roots is instant, and will heal for an additional %. You can use this and then immediately use it with your Regrowth. You could use it for an instant Entangling Roots, but I think it's much more worth it using it with Regrowth to get the extra healing. Rejuving everyone up and Life Blooming on 2 separate targets at once. Again, just really great way of getting instant heals out that are going to heal for a long duration. And if people are stacked up, etc., don't feel like you can't use Efflorescence as well to heal everyone within that area. Again, Cenarian Ward is a great absorption, and it's only usable every 30 seconds, meaning we can use it a hell of a lot. Another spell we have is Overgrowth. Apply Life Bloom, Rejuvenation, Wild Growth, and Regrowth all at the same time onto an ally, and then you can use it every single minute, which is massive. If someone's getting bursted, you can literally, if they're trying to burst them down, you can shove on Overgrowth and get all these hots up on them and then just continue healing them, etc. And it really is quite tough to get through all of that healing, especially as it's instant, and once you've used it, the healing is hots, so heal over times, meaning that's going to be healing them for quite a few seconds. Then looking at the utilities we have, of course we can go into bear form. If you do, there's Frenzied Regeneration, healing you for 32% of your health and increasing healing received. Iron Fur, which will give you more armor, but it does cost a lot of rage, so you may struggle to actually use that. But Heart of the Wild is another cooldown for other kind of specializations, which is really interesting. So your bear form is going to be enhanced. Your Frenzied Regen gains an extra charge. And if you do use any damage abilities, they're going to do more damage too. We've spoken about Bark Skin. We've got Ursul's Vortex and Cyclone, which I spoke about previously. Dash is going to be really good for getting out of hard, situations. It will transform you into cat form. Don't forget that when you do transform into any other shape-shifting, that it will remove all movement impairing effects as well. That's something that's really good to remember. We've also got our Entangling Roots. We can stop our enemies in. Renewal for a massive burst of instant healing on ourselves, and also Fawns if you do take the talent. Speaking of PvP talents, I really like Fawns. I also like to go for Preserve Nature here. Tranquility protects you from all harm while it's channeled and its healing is increased, and that's this cooldown here. So we can channel it doing loads of healing, which usually in PvP would be horrific, just standing there like, channeling a spell. However, with the Preserve Nature talent, again, it protects you from all harm while it's channeled and its healing is increased, meaning if a few of your other teammates are getting, bursted, you could even go in with an Overgrowth and then just whack out your Tranquility if you really wanted, but, you don't want to use too many tools all at once, however. And then after that, I go on Focused Growth, reduces the mana cost of your Life Bloom, and your Life Bloom also applies Focused Growth to the target, increasing how much healing Life Bloom actually does, and that can stack up to 3 times as well. And generally, that is pretty much everything. So at the top here, this is kind of your opener, the middle is your general healing and what we're going to be using, and then we've got your utilities. But now let's have a look at the hero talents and how they are being involved. So the build in the hero talents that we are going with is going to be Keeper of the Grove. Now, this is available to both Balance and Restoration Druids and heavily revolves around Grove Guardians, the treants that we can summon. So, starting off, we get Dream Surge. Grove Guardians cause your next targeted heal to create 2 Dream Petals. Oh yeah, there's a lot of Dream Petals involved here too. Cause them to create 2 Dream Petals near the target, stacking up to 3 times. It's going to heal nearby allies. So when your Grove Guardians cause your next targeted heal to cause those petals. So already it's improving our Grove Guardians and they're having an effect on us. Going down the left, we have Treants of the Moon. Your Grove Guardians cast Moonfire on nearby targets once every 6 seconds. Some extra DPS in there. Who wouldn't want that? Then we have our first choice node, Power of Nature or Durability of Nature. Your Grove Guardians' Nourish and Swiftmend spells also apply a minor Cenarian ward. So basically, when our Grove Guardians are healing, they're also going to put a minor absorption shield on our ally. And I really like Cenarian ward. It adds a bit more preemptive healing, which is really, really nice. We also can go with Power of Nature. Your Grove Guardians increase the healing of your Rejuvenation, Efflorescence, and Life Bloom while active. Overall, I do think Power of Nature is going to be better. It really does kind of depend. I just think the overall healing gives more power to us, rather than on the Grove Guardians where they're putting Cenarian Ward onto sort of people that we're not specifically choosing, if that makes sense. Then we've got another choice node, Bounteous Bloom or Early Spring. Grove Guardians cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds, or your Grove Guardians healing is increased by 30%. I massively think Bounteous Bloom is the way to go here. The extra healing is massive, and where we can really cycle our Grove Guardians quite a lot anyway, I don't think the extra 3-second cooldown is enough to warrant this talent. Going down the middle, our maximum mana is increased. Amazing, love that. Casting Swiftmend increases your haste. Amazing. Healing spells cast with Dream Surge generate an additional Dream Petal. Or Control of the Dream. Time elapsed while your major abilities are available to be used is subtracted from the ability's cooldown after the next time you use it, up to 15 seconds. This is insane, this talent. It affects Nature Swiftness, Incarnation Tree of Life, and Convoke the Spirits. TLDR, it's an amazing way of getting your cooldowns down on your biggest spells, and I love this talent. Then going on to the right-hand side, we've got Protective Growth. Your Regrowth protects you, reducing damage you take while it's on you. Great, some extra survivability. Grove Inspiration or Potent Enchantments. Reforestation grants Tree of Life for 3 additional seconds. And Wrath and Starfire damage is increased. Regrowth, Wildgrowth, and Swiftmend healing is increased. This is a really interesting one. I personally do think Grove's Inspiration is going to be the better option here. Blooming Infusion, just again, but the reason for that is just it's more direct healing. Pretty much, even though we are cycling of Reforestation into Tree of Life quite often, I really do think that direct healing overall non-stop is going to be better. Every 5 regrowths you cast, make your next Wrath, Starfire, or Entangling Roots instant and doubles their damage. A nice way to get some extra damage in there, especially if you're in Resto. Every 5 Star Surges you cast, make your next Regrowth or Entangling Roots instant. A nice way for us Balanced Druids to get a bit more healing, self-healing in instantly when we sometimes need it. And then finally, Harmony of the Grove. Each of your Grove Guardians increases your healing done by 5% while active. This is now making it so that we basically are using all of our Grove Guardians all the time, really, absolutely flat out to get that massive healing increase, or saving them for when we want to burst heal and get an extra 15% healing. You can use them either way. They're going to be doing a ton of healing. I do really like Keeper of the Grove, and you really will if you do like the Grove Guardian playstyle. Now we're going to look at the consumables and enchants, etc. And there have been a few changes in the War Within. So the first thing is we've got a new weekly vault, and now every week, if you want to get a socket on your gear from the vault, you still can, but it's called a Nerubian Gem Weaver. We have it on our helm, our wrist, and our belt. You can also add 2 sockets now to each piece of jewellery rather than a total of 3 on your neck, using the Magnificent Jeweller's setting. 2 on the neck, 2 on the ring, and 2 on the other ring. For the rest of the enchants, it's the chant of Leeching Fangs on your cloak. Let you have a guess. It gives you Leech. Now, it is only when out of combat, so you could put this on in Mythic Plus, but use the Avoidance one in raiding. But it kind of really doesn't matter. Either one's not amazing. Council's Intellect on chest, that gives intellect. Again, Leech on the wrist. Daybreak Spellthread on the legs, that actually gives intellect and stamina. Scout's March gives movement speed, it's 250, I think. We can put Mastery on our rings, and the Authority of Fiery Resolve on our weapon. Basically, when you're doing your usual healing, the Authority of Fiery Resolve will actually heal up to 4 nearby allies sometimes, and that's pretty much that, actually. Now looking at the... Oh, have I zoomed in too much here? I have. I'm going to zoom out. Looking at the actual consumables we're going to use, the Flask of Tempered Aggression is your crit strike, crit chance, and Flask of Tempered Mastery is Mastery. Depends which one you need, and if you're really not sure, go with a Flask of Versatility. It's called Tempered Versatility, which is a more general all-round flask. Feast of the Divine Day is going to give you Intellect. Mana Bomb? Oh, God. It's... Well, not Teldrassil. Wherever they bombed that place. Algari Mana Potion is the mana potion that you're going to be using, and the potion bomb, oh, that's why I said bomb, of recovery. Oh my God, where is it? Pheromore, that's where they use the mana bomb, if you know your lore. So, potion bomb of recovery, it basically throws a bomb, and your allies standing in it will actually get increased healing for... They get increased healing received by 5 to 10% based on crafting quality for 12 seconds. Enemies caught in the blast will then get fire damage split between them as well. And then we've got our Algari healing potion. I don't really use that. Algari mana oil you can now add on your weapon as well. We have got mana oils again, increasing your critical strike and haste. And then augment runes are called crystallized augment runes. If you are using one, they're going to be very expensive on launch. And then sockets, so the culminating blasphemite, this adds primary stats, so intellect, but it also means that if you have different coloured gems, you're going to get more crit effect. So if we only have rubies, we're going to get 0.15% crit effect. If we have a ruby, a sapphire, an emerald, and an onyx, it's going to times that by 4, and therefore we're going to get 0.60% increased critical effect. So you want to have at least one of each gem, and then I would go with a deadly onyx for the rest of your gems. But do simulate your character, unless you're a beginner, of course, then just shove any old crap in there. Deadly onyx would be my suggestion. But yeah, if you are simming your character, then do be careful with the gems, but I would highly recommend to have one of each colour to start with for your culminating blasphemite. Thank you so much for watching this guide. I hope it was really useful for you in The War Within Season 1, whether it was for Mythic Plus or raiding. If you do have any questions, I'll be happy to help. My Patreon is in the description below, and that is where you can find my LVUI profiles, which I'll show you in a second. And also, I'm putting together a huge macro list for every single spec that's going to be really useful for you in The War Within as well. I am doing all classes and specs for The War Within, so if you are new to the channel, then please do click this playlist here to check out what else I have, which is all of them. There will also be PvP guides on this channel as well for War Within Season 1, so make sure to look out for that. This here is the UI that I was referring to. As you can see, we've got target frames, etc., left and right, and raid frames go in the middle here, and then weak auras in the middle with an action bar down here. Chat is behind where my camera is. Minimap and details, etc., are here on the right. All of the plater profiles, the voodoo, the LVUI, etc., details profile has all been made by me. And again, you can get this on my Patreon should you like it.